It was March 2020. As the world retreated, Ado found herself in the stillness of her home, reaching a turning point. She made the decision to leave the actor school behind to pursue a professional career on her own terms. Despite having committed to 3 years of training, she realized that she was met with little expectation from her instructors. She understood that the only way to validate her path towards a major debut was to step out of the classroom and prove her worth through undeniable results. Usually timid, Ado felt a sudden, sharp clarity. She had to prove her worth through results, not expectations. She told her mother she was quitting the actor school, gently dismissing her mother's offer of financial support by explaining that the school simply no longer felt like the place she belonged. Though she felt deep gratitude towards her mother for the sacrifices made to fund those lessons, Ado kept her true goal, the major debut, a secret, fearing the dream sounded too outlandish. Meanwhile, as the world outside slowed down, her digital presence began to accelerate. The Utatemita videos she uploaded in the solitude of her room started to gain traction. The DM requests from record labels began to accumulate in her inbox, but she knew where her loyalty lay. She didn't want a generic manager. She wanted the one person who had actually seen her. Ado had shared with Chigira that she left the school, but he never pressured her. He insisted she choose the agency where she felt she truly belonged. Her mind, however, was already made up. In late May 2020, as the state of emergency due to COVID-19 pandemic was finally lifted, she called him. Battling the crushing anxiety that she might be a nuisance or simply not good enough, she finally spoke the words she had reversed in her mind. There was a pause. Then the reply came, immediate and certain. On June 9, 2020, Ado introduced her parents to Chigira at a coffee shop. Though he arrived in shorts and sandals, her family looked past his unconventional appearance. Her father, brimming with excitement, blurted out the words she struggled to keep contained. Chigira meticulously explained the contract, prioritizing Ado's future by ensuring her high school graduation would remain a priority over her career. He promised her that she would never have to change who she was to be an artist. With signatures on the page, Ado, the artist signed to Cloud9, was officially born. Back in her room that night, standing by the window and watching the city lights, she felt a profound sense of gratitude. For the first time, she had found an adult she could truly trust. Someone who never dismissed the girl who sang only in the digital space. She looked out at the lights and promised herself that one day she would deliver her song to the people living beneath them. Chigira began pitching Ado to record labels, presenting her music alongside a set of non-negotiable conditions: the continuation of her Utatemita videos, free instrumental distributions, MV postings on Nico Nico, and a strict requirement for anonymity. To Ado, these were not merely preferences, they were the foundation of her identity. She held a deep desire to spread Vocaloid culture, and her dream for the free distribution of instrumentals was to ensure that future Utaite singers could easily cover her songs, just as she had done with others. If she could not maintain the culture that birthed her, she feared she was no longer Ado. The industry, however, was not ready. Label after label rejected her, finding her demands incompatible with traditional promotion. Just as her hope began to falter, a DM arrived from Universal Music. A few days later, Ado traveled to Harajuku. navigating the imposing halls of the Universal Music Building, the same label home to her idol Billie Eilish. She felt the nervous excitement of a dream begin to crystallize. In the meeting, she was greeted by Imada-san, who has sent her the DM, and his superior Nagano-san. They were both welcoming and sincere, having listened to her work and showing genuine respect for her craft. They didn't ask her to change. Instead, they proposed an experimental studio recording, presenting a list of renowned Vocaloid producers to collaborate with. Sitting in the office, watching the path forward unfurl with dizzying speed, Ado realized that the impossible was becoming reality. The girl who had only ever sung in the solitude of her closet was being invited to step out into the world. A few days later, Ado received a song list from Chigira for a test recording. It was filled with tracks she had never sung before. And she spent hours in her closet, obsessively practicing until she mastered each one of them. The day of the session at Universal Music felt like stepping into a movie. The Star Royal studio was a stark contrast to her home setup. For the first time, she had to sing with staff watching through the glass. She felt exposed and anxious, constantly questioning if her delivery was correct. Yet, when she finished, the response from the booth was immediate. Nagano-san's approval was swift, followed by the words she had prayed for. They wanted to move forward with the contract. Ado bowed deeply, masking her immense joy. The silent inner victory that signaled her dream was finally become reality. After sighing, Ado's life became a blur. She spent days locked in her closet, mastering a massive list of songs to prove her dedication to Chigira and Universal Music. When he announced she would debut on October 23, 2020, the day before her 18th birthday, she knew her time as a teenager to make a lasting mark had truly begun. Before finalizing the direction, Ado requested specific Vocaloid producers she admired for her debut single. On July 28th, they gathered to hear the demos. When they played Ussewa by Shudo, the room went still. As Hatsune Miku's sharp, piercing vocals filled the air, everyone knew instantly. This was the one. However, a struggle remained. Ado realized that recording under the gaze of others felt like an invasion, threatening to make her performance feel hollow. She had to take a stand. Arriving for the session, she turned to Chigira with a firm demand. Left alone in the studio, she mirrored her closed sanctuary. As the door clicked shut, the tension vanished. Ado dove into recording Ussewa, channeling the raw, aggressive anger she had mastered through years of vocal covers. Alone in the studio, she felt like the crane from the folktale, plucking her own feathers to weave a masterpiece. She recorded for 2.5 hours, her focus absolute. After a week of recording another candidate track, ready-made, the team compared the two. The original solitary studio recording of Ussewa was officially chosen as her debut single. Most importantly, Chigira confirmed she could continue her solitary closet-style recording method moving forward. Finally, the night arrived. Ado stood in her room, eyes locked on the clock, waiting for the stroke of midnight. She launched herself into the air at the exact moment of her debut. With that leap, she was no longer just a high school student. She was a major artist. She retreated to the silence of her closet, listening to Ussewa through her headphones. The song, a searing anthem of pent-up frustration and the defiance of those who underestimated her, felt like it was ripped from her own life. When the MV premiered on YouTube later that evening, 3,500 people watched it with her in real time. But that was only the beginning. The numbers soon defied all logic. 1 million views in a week, 5 million by mid-November, and 10 million just 16 days later. Ado watched the statistic in a mix of wonder and terror, realizing she was standing in the eye of a digital storm. But with popularity came scrutiny. The media began debating Ussewa, with panels questioning whether its aggressive lyrics were harmful to children. While others argued on air, Ado watched with a sense of quiet reflection. She knew that sparking debate was a sign of impact. It meant her music had escaped the bubble of her fanbase and reached the wider world. Being branded the Ussewa girl didn't bother her. In fact, she embraced it as the first step of her journey. As the song crossed 100 million views, the backlash intensified. While Ado was shielded from the direct vitriol, Shigeru bore the brunt of it, handling every inquiry and complaint alone. Seeing him stand in the line of fire left Ado with a heavy heart, her natural instinct to apologize clashing with the public perception of her persona. The success also brought a surreal shift in her reality. One day, her mother handed her a bank book. The account held royalties from Ussewa, a figure so large it was incomprehensible to a teenager who had never had pocket money. She hid the bank book away, feeling a mix of pride and fear. Her life had shifted overnight. Though she remained the same person, the world around her had transformed. Ado's career soared, and the pressure mounted. But her greatest challenge wasn't the industry, it was her father. After Ussewa became a sensation, he began claiming credit for her talent, boasting to friends and even posting online that he was the father of Ado. Despite Ado's pleas to stop, he refused to listen, his self-importance threatening the very privacy and professional boundaries that protected her craft. Ado realized she could no longer share a home with someone who disregarded her agency and harassed her management. With her mother's blessing, Ado decided to move out. In March 2021, after graduating high school, she signed a lease on a small studio apartment, one with a large window and spacious closet, mirroring the century where her voice had first taken shape. The move was more than just a change of address, it was an act of liberation. On the night her father finally left her new home after another confrontation, Ado watched his back as he walked away, and silently whispered a final goodbye. As the door clicked shut, she felt a heavy, long-standing burden lift from her chest. For the first time in years, she felt the stillness of a life truly her own, allowing her to finally breathe and sleep in peace. As Ado released a steady stream of hits, the narrative surrounding her began to shift. The public initially saw her through the lens of her debut, Ussewa. But as she followed up with tracks like Ready Made and Gira Gira, her versatility became undeniable. This transformation culminated in the release of Odo on April 27, 2021. With its frantic tempo and intricate lyrical wordplay, it showcased a range that finally silenced the critics. Industry professionals who once doubted her now hailed her as a master, realizing she was far from a one-hit wonder. This moment reached a peak with the release of Yoru no Piero, which served as a drama tie-in song and earned her a Shibuya Jack, a promotion where her music video played simultaneously across all the massive screen surrounding the famous Shibuya Scramble Crossing. During this period, Cloud9 hired their first employee, Endo-san, finally easing the burden on Chigira, who had single-handedly managed the office for 2 years. During that time, he had faced extreme hardship. When the pandemic hit in 2020 and wiped out his planned events, he had even worked as an Uber Eats delivery driver to keep the lights on and pay for the studio time Ado needed, when she learned the truth that the very studio time she used to record her breakthrough was funded by his deliveries, Ado was struck by the weight of his sacrifice. He had launched Cloud9 with no initial artists, navigated crushing debt, and held the firm together while events collapsed one after another, all without ever letting a hint of stress reach her. As he told his story and thanked her for saving his agency from collapse, Ado felt an overwhelming surge of gratitude in return. Inspired by his resilience, she initially felt she could fly through any storm. However, the whirlwind of her debut and the massive success of Ussewa soon took their toll. Caught between her authentic self and the image the world demanded, she began to fracture under pressure. The mirror no longer reflected a hopeful girl. Her eyes looked hollow, dark, and drained of light. In a moment of vulnerability, she posted a careless, unfiltered vent on her blog, complaining about the demands of her work. Though she meant it as a way to release the pressure, it was a display of immaturity that betrayed her responsibility as a professional. Shigeru called her immediately, his voice sharp with a rare, severe anger. He scolded her, not just for the public complaint, but for the dark sentiment she had expressed. Ado broke down, sobbing uncontrollably at her own fragility and the realization that she had acted with the carelessness of an amateur. She felt the heavy sting of shame for prioritizing her own emotional pain over the trust of the team that had built her career. As she stared into the mirror on August 11, 2021, a date already marked by the bittersweet memory of a favorite manga series ending exactly 1 year prior, she felt utterly hollow. Her mind spiraled back to the same desperate thought. She longed for the days before she carried the name Ado, before the weight of expectations, evaluations, and the word scrutiny. Memories surfaced, the warmth of birthday cakes, the texture of books, the simple joy of watching her favorite works shine from behind the screen. She looked at her reflection and realized she was more than the girl she used to be. Someone who existed in a world that was too warm, bright, and above all, entirely her own. The chapter 2 of the book, called The Storm of Ussewa, brought us many information about what went through her life before, during, and after her debut of Ussewa, and how Ado had dreamed so much for that, for the success, for her major debut, but she didn't realize how heavy that was. The success, the responsibilities, the scrutiny, the critics, everything. She only learned the truth when all of those things became a reality. And that's when she started to miss her old days, when she was an unknown girl just singing inside her closet. This is probably true to every new artist when they just debut. They are just unable to not care about people's opinions, critics, scrutiny, and everything just hit heavier and harder at that period, probably. At least this is what I think. It's just, I wouldn't, if I had the talent and if I was debuting as a singer, I wouldn't be able to not care as well about critics and what everyone thinks of my music of me or everything related to me. So I think that was what crushed her the most, is that she felt that she needed to attend the demand of the public, what people expected of her, which was not how she truly was, Ado herself, or Ao. So she didn't know what to do, and she didn't know how to respond to that pressure. That's what made her vent in her blog and saying all those hurtful and worried things about herself. So I totally understand how Chigira got angry because of that. And also worried, obviously. Ado had gone through much in her life. She was going through much in her life, and there was the issue with her father, and he was worried with her, obviously. She was a teenager, she was young, she still didn't have experience as a successful artist. This chapter broke me. With everything she was telling. It started with hope and expectations and all of the feelings she had at that time about being happy that her dream was finally coming true. And then it shifted again, a dark mood. It started with the critics and scrutiny of the public, and then to her father. The fact that she has finally able to breathe and to sleep in peace when she left home, it's just so sad. That you can finally breathe when you leave your family, your home. It's just tragic and sad, and it made me cry. It really made me cry to think that someone who was supposed to support her, to be there as a parent, was actually harming her. And I'm glad that her mother was not the same. She was all the time supporting her. For what I could see, she is a really kind and gentle and considerate mother. When her mother got the bank book and saw all the money Ado was receiving because of her debut single, she instantly got shocked, surprised, and she just said, "This is all yours. It's yours to keep. You just do whatever you want with the money." And she just handed her the bank book. I just thought, oh my God, what a kind and supportive mother. And she gave her blessings when Ado told her she wanted to move out, that she wanted to leave home, she wanted to live alone by herself. I just felt so thankful for this mother who supported and blessed her. And I'm so glad Ado, despite having a father who harmed her, she had a mother who supported her. And there was another moment where I really became emotional, was when Chigira was telling her and the Universal Music staff about how until recently, in that period, he was still working as a Uber Eats delivery driver. He has been working with that since he founded Cloud9 and even until after the debut of Ussewa, and how he used that money and his sacrifice to rent a studio for Ado to do her alone recording of Ussewa, and how grateful and moved Ado was with his sacrifice, obviously. When you are reading that, you also get moved and touched and emotional. Not only with Chigira's feelings and sacrifice, but also with how Ado felt by listening to his story. I'm getting emotional again right here while I'm recording this video. It's insane. And finally, what broke me the most was how the chapter ended. Ado feeling utterly hollow, wanting to die, and having to carry the name Ado that comes with so much expectations, evaluations, critics, and the word scrutiny. And she just started to remember the days when she was just a known girl in her closet. How bright and warm and full of dreams she was, and now she wants to go back to those days. This is how chapter 2 ends, leaving you in the dark and hollow feelings of Ado. It was a really difficult to read to me, how the chapter ends, honestly. I'm feeling my heart extremely heavy. I hope that the feelings and the mood gets better in the next chapter. I hope so. Please, Ado, please. I just want some warmth, positivity, anything. Anything better than this. I want to thank everyone who joined me today in this video in the chapter 2 of the Miniature Garden, Ado's autobiography series. If you want to comment anything about this section that I have covered today, please feel free to bring here in the comment section. Thank you very much, and I hope to see you next time on my next video. Mata ne!